right. Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of August 8th, 2018. Will the council members please introduce themselves, starting from my right?
Lisa Ketchum.
Barbara Mathewson.
Dave Olson.
Claire Touton.
Ran Kwan.
Chris Johnson.
Dan Haggerty.
All right, and our first order of business is Board of Supervisors report, which will be delivered by Ellie Dahlman, and then we'll have reports by other government officials.
Great. Good evening, Midcoast Community Council and community members. My name's Ellie Dahlman. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley with the County of San Mateo. And the first item I have for you is just a couple updates from the recent board meeting we had this week. The first item is the board approved a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a Caltrans Sustainable Communities Grant, which will go towards funding an unincorporated San Mateo County bicycle and pedestrian master plan. So this is really exciting. There's about $230,000 approximately dollars that we've received from Caltrans to really look at what do we currently have in the unincorporated San Mateo County areas and where is the need for bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So there's a full-blown project that will begin in October, and big thanks goes to the Office of Sustainability Active Transportation staff members who wrote this grant application themselves and will be leading the effort once they receive their first allocation of funding starting October. The second item from the board meeting is just an update related to the coast side. A $20,000 Measure K one-time grant was approved for Abundant Grace coastside workers for farm employment opportunities. And just a little bit of information. Has anybody heard of Abundant Grace before? Yeah. Okay, so I won't go too much into detail, but it's a nonprofit organization associated with the Coastside Lutheran Church aimed at practicing hospitality, growing and sharing food. And their mission is grounded in an accompaniment model of advocacy and direct service to homeless, immigrant, and low-income communities. So that grant was approved by the board, and we're excited to be to see local nonprofits supporting homeless population and helping to get them back on their feet.
This is the grant for a couple days a week picking up trash.
I believe it would go towards covering costs associated with the efforts around providing day jobs for homeless to harvest the crops.
Oh, because I know that Abundant Grace already had a worker program for the farm, so I thought I heard like a month or two ago that they were starting a program for the more urban area of Half Moon Bay, picking up trash around the Half Moon Bay, but this is for the farm worker program?
Yes, so this funding will support the Organic Farm Employment Project program costs, including provisions of direct service and payment of worker stipends. That's what it will go towards covering. The next item I have is just a reminder that the Coastside Design Review Committee, there are still 3 open spots, Miramar Community Representative, as well as the alternate Miramar Community Representative, and the alternate Montera Community Representative. So that recruitment was just reposted. We have an updated time frame deadline of November 2nd. So if you know anybody who lives in Montera or Miramar, please spread the word. We've received a number of applicants or applications from people who do not reside in Miramar or think they reside there, but when planning takes a look at the maps, it's not technically what's considered unincorporated Miramar. So the staff has attached maps behind the recruitment to show exactly what area you must live within. So hopefully that will resolve some of the confusion. And then the 2 final things, just a quick update, the multimodal parallel trail. We did receive 90% designs, which is really exciting, although we still need to take a look at that one of the bridge abutments over the creek, which we believe is in conflict with the new force main that was installed by SAM. So the 90% designs will have to be likely adjusted to ensure that we're not building right on top of or too close to the SAM force main. But otherwise, that project is moving forward, and we were able to get the grant application for the Active Transportation Program, or ATP, funding cycle submitted on Monday of last week. So we're really excited to have that in the pot, and hopefully they'll get back to us or in December approximately. The staff recommendations will come out. So finally, it's a little bit early, but brought some flyers that the elections office provided for the upcoming November election. Just reminder of the different ways that you can vote. It is mail-in only, but there's 3 different ways. I think you can mail in with the postage paid envelope, use a county drop box, or visit a vote center. So I left some out in the front, and I'd be happy to leave the English and the Spanish versions of this little flyer handout. If anybody would like to know people that would like some of the flyers, or if you'd like additional copies, let me know, and I'd be happy to make sure that those get to you.
And will the vote centers be in the same location as the primaries?
I would have to double check with the elections office. I would assume so, but suggest that you follow up directly with them just to double check.
Got it.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council?
Did you leave Spanish out there too?
I have a stack. I'll leave some of the, I was gonna leave all of these.
Yeah.
Leave them
okay.
all, I'll take a bunch.
Yeah. Great. And if you need more, just let me know, and I can bring more for the next meeting.
All right, Dan?
Question about the parallel trail.
Uh-huh.
Is the speed bumps still kind of in that design, 90% design?
The speed bumps are still in the design. I did follow up with the consultant to confirm the distance between the edge of the speed bump and the edge of Highway 1 on the side streets. So where the parallel trail crosses the number of side streets that are perpendicular to Highway 1, the parallel trail designs include a raised crossing. So for vehicles who are approaching the trail crossing, they would go over a slightly elevated speed bump that would be about 8 feet wide, which is the width of the trail, plus the either side where it inclines and declines. But there's approximately 40 feet between the edge of the speed bump and the edge of the highway. So that should accommodate a number of vehicles.
Bottom edge or the top edge?
40 feet from where the trail crossing, it's basically between if you're coming off of the highway, driving towards the trail on the side street, there's about 40 feet until you hit the speed bump trail crossing.
Yeah, I think the exact difference will vary from crossing to
Yeah.
crossing.
But it's approximately 40 feet. I can send you the exacts for each of them, but that would allow a few vehicles to sit and wait to get onto the highway, or as they're coming off, so you're not gonna immediately hit the speed bump raised crossing. It's not gonna be like a traditional speed bump that are really, kind of more on the jerky side, in that it's gonna be a much longer and more smooth raised crossing.
So how long would the ramp be?
I would have to double check on the specifics. I also asked the consultant to provide some information about examples of existing, and I believe I sent you information about an existing raised crossing that's at Stonestown in San Francisco. If you pull into the parking lot and hang a right, there's a raised crosswalk, which is it's similar, but kind of a different environment in that it's mainly for pedestrians and, probably a bit wider than what the trail will be. But I am waiting to hear back from the consultant about examples of raised trail crossings to point you to. That way you can see what it's like. But the reason that the raised crossings are included is really to bring additional attention to the drivers, to let them know that there's a chance that people or cyclists will be crossing there, so it will really help to slow down the traffic, which I think is important to really increase the safety, especially if we're hoping for many students who are going to El Granada Elementary School and possibly Half Moon Bay High in downtown Half Moon Bay to use this trail. We'll want to make sure that the crossing, where there are vehicular trail interactions, we want to make sure that it's as safe as possible. And other good news is that the city of Half Moon Bay also submitted applications for the active transportation program. Well, good and bad news. They're our competitors, but they submitted applications for the southern segment of the Naomi Patridge Trail all the way to Moon Ridge, and then they also submitted an application for that final segment up to the county unincorporated border, which would match right up with where our trail segment for the parallel trail would end.
Great.
So,
I thought they had submitted that connection before and had been awarded it. The northern segment up to,
I would have to double check. I don't know the details, although I know that we provided a letter of support for an application, and I'm not sure, it's possible that they received funding for the planning phase,
Okay,
and maybe this application may be for construction, but I'd have to double check.
I'm pretty sure they haven't done a construction grant yet. Okay, Chris?
Sorry, one last thing. Ellie, do you have any update for us on the, sorry, I've been out of town for a month, and maybe this has been posted. Any update for us on the search for a new county parks director?
I don't have any updates, but I can follow up and let you know. You probably are aware Peggy Jensen is the interim director and Nicholas Calderon is the assistant parks director. And I know that they will be opening up the search for a replacement parks director soon. So I'll come back with more information as it's available.
Yeah, I would wanna, if you could, next time, has a job description been posted, you know, is the search active now?
It's not active yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just, wanted to add one more thing, I don't know, just that I'm concerned with how it's called a mail-in election only when there's other options. So the concern is that, people that wanna vote, if they didn't, get their mail in, that they might think that, well, they can't vote.
So that's,
It's the label of it that I haven't.
yeah, and I may have used I don't work directly for the elections office, so I'm not sure what exact terminology they're using, but that's kind of the primary reason that they have these handouts, and they're really trying to get the word out about all of the different ways that you can vote in the upcoming
You
election.
can actually go in and vote at the county elections office on a machine. They have drop-off places on election day. They have assistance for people who are disabled,
And they have early voting too.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Fully aware of all that, but it's not the first time I've heard the mail-in only
Mhm.
election, so.
Well,
it's-
and-
Which could be
This
misleading.
will be
Yeah.
the third one for San Mateo County.
Yeah, and,
But you
and,
get my point. They're
Yeah.
calling it a mail-in only, but it's not. There's other options.
Well,
It's
that's
misleading.
based on the state law that enables
and so that's
It's how they call
yeah, the
it.
pr-
But I'm saying
primary
they're using
purpose
the
of
name in the state law.
the flyers here are trying to get the word out to say, you have 3 ways to return your completed ballot. So that's, if you can help us spread the word to ensure that there is no confusion and that people are clear, they've got options, yes, sure, you can take, these are the English. So I was just gonna
Oh,
leave
and
these out
Spanish?
front, yeah.
Oh, great.
I was gonna leave them out front, so let me know if you need more.
Or if you stand-
Sure. And just one final thing, I saw a news article I just wanted to bring to your attention. The Samtrans board recently adopted the Coastside Transit Study, which I have yet to delve into, but just wanted to let you know that that's been posted and may be of interest to you.
Yeah, that's coming out of meetings that they have all up and down the coast. Unfortunately, it's not gonna lead to much new stuff in the near-term future, but they did at least add the 118 bus, and they added a couple extra buses and redid the schedule on the 17 bus for the school. So they were responding to what they heard.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie.
Steve McGraw, you want to go next?
Thank you, council members. Chair Olson, Steve McGraw, General Manager for the San Mateo County Harbor District, and haven't been to see you in a little while. The big thing that's going on for the Harbor District right now is that we are transitioning to districted elections from at-large elections. We're not going to be able to do that in time for the November 2018 this upcoming election, but it will be done in time for the 2020 election and will be fully implemented by the 2022 election. Today, we did publish on our website the first round of potential maps of what those 5 districts could look like. Those maps will be reviewed by the Harbor Commission at the next regular meeting, which is next Wednesday. And that's the one right here downstairs. I do have hard copies of those maps if anybody is interested. Oh, look at that.
I've already filled in the survey, so I don't know.
Okay, you pass those around then. Thank you. So we'll be meeting to discuss this in front of the board next Wednesday, and then the following week, there's going to be a couple more special meetings, public workshops to receive input from the public. Those will be on Wednesday, the 22nd at the Municipal Services Building in South San Francisco, and then on Thursday, the 23rd, at our district offices downstairs. Both those meetings are at 6:30. They'll be attended by the demographer, redistricting partners, and the attorneys that we're working with to make sure that we stay compliant with the law. These are just the first go-around, of course. Any more input? Then by the time we get into September, we'll have a special meeting in September, it'll be on September the 5th, where the district may at that time adopt the final map, and the process for implementing those 2 maps over the course of the next 2 general elections after this one. Before I go on, I've just got a couple of little updates, but before I go on, I'll be happy to answer any questions about elections.
I just wanted to say one thing. So if you go to the Harbor District website, there is a link to the district elections and a link to the maps and surveys, so you can vote, make comments on them, if you want to do that without going to one of the meetings.
Thank you, Chair.
So one of these potential maps would be implemented in 2022, while I heard in 2020 you're using the supervisor districts.
No, no, that's not correct, no. In 2000, to start at the beginning, in 2018, 2 seats are up. All other things equal, there will be 3 seats up in 2020. So when the board elects to choose these maps, the final map, they will also determine which of these 5 districts, which 3 of the 5 districts will be in the 2020 elections, because there would be 3 otherwise.
Got it.
And then the remaining 2 will obviously then be up for election in 2022.
Got it.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Of the current board members, where do they live relative to these maps? Are they mostly in the areas of the 2 harbors?
Well, relative to these maps, the current board members, well, 3 of them live in, one lives in El Granada, 2 live in Moss Beach. So certainly, let's see, in Plan A, Plan B, and I would have to look a little closer at Plan C, but in Plan A and Plan B, 3 commissioners live in the same district. 1 commissioner lives currently in South San Francisco, and 1 commissioner lives down in Menlo Park. So I haven't looked at any of these maps yet as they relate to current incumbency. We do have an election in as we all know, coming up. Incumbency may be very different by the time we get to 2020. We certainly know that Commissioner Bernardo, who's been on the board for 8 years, has announced that he is not running for re-election. So we know there will be at least one change in the 2018 election. Again, don't know what else may happen for the 2020.
So we also know that when these are implemented, the coast side will have less representation than they currently do.
Possibly so. Yes. But that speaks to the sort of the politics behind it. And if I can, very briefly, during our demographer's presentation, which, and by the way, the 3 presentations we've had are all, the videos for those are also on the website, along with the demographer's PowerPoint presentation. He did point out that initially, going back quite a ways, districts, elections were all districted. It then became apparent in the days of the Chicago ward bosses that this led to corruption and patronage. So in the interests of better government, there was a move to at-large elections. And interestingly, we have now come full circle back to district elections.
So it used to be district elections.
No, I'm going back over 100 years.
Oh,
now. It used to
okay.
be-
Almost
it
all
used to
across
be-
the country.
It used to be districted, then then there was a movement towards at large, and now it's in a movement back towards districted elections under the provisions of the California Voting Rights Act.
All right, any other questions on
On
the
that?
redistricting? On the districting, I should say, not redistricting. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Very briefly, early warning about Fish and Fleet coming up on September the 16th, a great event down at Pillow Point Harbor. And then that's on Sunday, September the 16th. On Monday, September the 17th, the contractor will begin work on the project we've been talking about, widening the sidewalk in front of Tenant Row, repairing and replacing a couple of the storm drains underneath the parking lot, and then sealing and striping the parking lot as a whole. Great project there. I'm sure you will notice one of our other big projects recently was Romeo Pier.
Is there going to be a replacement for? No.
But it's really just an extraordinarily different view shed. Extraordinarily different.
And I will say they did a very good job.
They were very thorough. It was the Dutra Group, and they're one of the big guys out in the Bay Area.
Now that it's over, do you know where the hazardous materials ended up being
Hasn't
taken?
really, a lot of it, but it was all taken to a facility in San Francisco where it was sorted and directed according to the material. We've got RFPs on the website currently for engineering studies and soil sampling and analysis for our Surfers Beach project. As we have moved forward with the great cooperation of this Marine Sanctuary and the Army Corps and Coastal Commission, I'd like to be able to see that project, we think, be able to get implemented next spring. Could probably be earlier from a permitting perspective, at the beginning, late fall. But we don't want to do a project like that in late fall prior to winter storms. We want to wait till the spring. The launch ramp dredge project, a small dredge project, we're just going to remove 1,600 cubic yards from around the area of the launch ramp. We're very close to having all the permits in place for that. Again, thanks to Supervisor Horsley for his assistance in getting us the approval to stage that sand on airport property. And we've got an agreement now with the county, and hopefully that will get approved by our board at our meeting next week. We've also got an invitation to bid out for repair of the Harbor Master office roof. Those are the big things that are going on down at the harbor. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the projects or anything else.
Dan?
Yeah, thank you for your report, Steve. So, question about the sidewalk expansion. So, we have the, what do you call it, 3 or 4 restaurants, or I don't know how the businesses are divided. But then you've got the charter fishing, and
Yep.
you've got the Mavericks
Yep.
surf shop. So the question is, will the sidewalk be widened the whole way? I mean, I understand the spirit, the purpose to make outdoor seating for a restaurant, but, if it's no restaurant, are we still gonna lose the parking?
There's gonna be no net loss of parking, in the parking lot as a whole. There won't be parking directly in front of Tennant Road. And through several iterations and public meetings, there was discussion about how to configure this wider sidewalk. And the commission, decision finally was to widen the entire length of that sidewalk. Anything else?
So the sand, sand from the dredging is gonna be temporarily
Mhm.
stored at the airport property?
Yep. And then what?
Intentions, with intentions later to replenish the beach?
With the intention of not wasting a good resource initially, and then secondly, what we are currently thinking is that when we get our permits to do the West Trail project, that using that sand in that location would be a good way to use it. 1,600 yards in comparison with the 70,000 cubic yards that is the Surface Beach project doesn't sound like a lot, but I think I counted it out once, and it's actually quite a significant amount of sand. And when we do the West Trail project, we've got to sort of build like a little berm almost away from the bluff to allow for the work to be done. The idea is that that will be a combination of rock and this sand, and then on the completion of the project, we will take away the rock and leave the sand in place as part of the beach nourishment component of the project.
And last question, has there been any exploring of, I understand there's some cement treated soil concepts that pretty much stabilize the soil with cement treated. It's a common use in areas with erosion. So has there been any exploration of
That at the West Trail?
Yes.
No. What we're doing is for the comparatively small section of that entire trail that we're actually working on. It's just this little sort of area that is a focus of wave energy that gets eroded. And we're doing what's called a soil nail wall there. And it's soil nails driven into the bank to stabilize the bank, and then sculptured concrete.
Horizontally, just under the trail?
Just under the trail, and then a sculptured colored concrete that is designed to match the surrounding rock formations. The sort of stuff you see at the entrance to the tunnels,
Right.
right? That's soil nail and sculptured concrete.
That's what the MCC asked for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you aware that there was a lot of that work?
Hey, Dan, we're getting way off subject with this agenda item. I'd suggest that you go ahead
Well, we're
and
talking
talk
about the
to,
trail.
but this is a government report, not an agenda item. I'd suggest you talk to Steve in his office,
We can do that.
or go to
Yeah.
one of their meetings.
Having discussed it.
Thanks. Really appreciate
You
it.
also had a question then?
This is something maybe for both Ellie and you. I had a thing on my email about $90,000 community resilience grants from the county to come up with strategies to deal with erosion and sea level rise. And I was wondering if there was any interest in these grants on the coast side, or if you knew anything more about them.
I know that we got that notice. We are looking into what projects that we're currently planning that could benefit from that added level of work and effort.
Great.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Steve.
No.
Thank you.
Other government reports?
Yeah, I wanted to announce that I will not be running for office for MCC in November, or coming up this fall. So I want to make sure that people know that there'll be at least one opening. The deadline is Friday. You can go down to not county center, but the county elections department, which is right here at 92 and 280, and fill out the paperwork there by Friday. Friday's the deadline.
It's actually going to be extended because you are an incumbent who is not running. It will be extended to August 15th.
To August 15th. Okay, so anybody that's interested, August 15th. And I will say that one of the reasons that I've decided not to run is I've been on the council for 5 years because of the changing of the election dates. And I think that's enough time to figure things out. And one of the things I figured out after many weeks of debating is I think there's other people in this community that could do a better job in the sense of we have a lot of good people in this community and they have a lot of energy, and I just looking at myself honestly in the mirror have run out of steam a little bit, and I'm hoping that people will watch this and be excited and want to run for the MCC. I really have a lot of respect for this body, and maybe I'll be back. I'm going to take the Committee for Green Foothills course next year, and I think that will help me get the skills I need to really satisfy myself with this position. So anybody listening, it's a good thing. Come, please join. Please run for office. That's an experience in itself, but being part of this body would be really satisfying, I think, for a lot of people in the community.
Thank you. And although you're not done with your term yet, I will still say thank you for your service.
Still got some things,
Thank you.
some time left.
And also, there's going to be 2 seats that, if 2 incumbents aren't going to run, I'm going to be one of them who won't run for re-election, though there's 2 seats up for re-election. So if no one runs, then I guess we're going to have to talk to the Board of Supervisors, see if we could appoint someone if there's not enough people running.
Yeah, and I will say, I think there's nothing wrong with being appointed. I think there's a certain sense of legitimacy through actually being elected. And so I'm glad that the MCC is an elected council, and the more people that are elected, I think the better the community sees us as representative. I have made a posting on Facebook with a link to the documents and an offer to have anybody who's interested or concerned or might be interested, come talk to me. I'll help you with anything I can. I'll make a similar posting on Nextdoor. But yes, anybody listening to this on the video or in the audience, please pass on that we're looking for people to run. So I think that's the end of that item. All right, then I will close the government officials report, and we will move on to public comment and announcements. Does anybody wish to speak on something not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll close. Yep, go ahead.
Maybe I'll just jump in here. Carl May, Moss Beach. Driven by the need for more information to be out there, and I want to thank Lisa for all the informational sections she's put on. We do quite a bit of running in circles on matters of affordable housing, who qualifies, who will get in there, and whatever. And sorry for using up the paper, but if you pass these down, this is the 2017 affordable housing figures for San Mateo County, and there are two different sets of figures. The feds and the state calculate it slightly differently. But I think this, and by the way, it's amazingly enough, the figure should be about 10% higher for 2018. Area median income is now up to about $124,000 in 2018. The federal government just put out a notice that low income in San Mateo County is considered to be, for a family of four, $117,000 in a year. And I think these figures, as various affordable ideas and so forth are floated, and so you might consider the numbers involved, because one of my harangues for a very long time is many of us who will suffer the consequences, potentially, of affordable housing if it's not done properly, would actually qualify to be in that housing. And the other thing is that because the local affordable housing project on tap right now in Moss Beach, but you hear it all the time for other places around here, because those units cannot be assigned to just coastside people, this comes into play on all of the other stuff that goes along with the affordable housing. The suggested changes from Caltrans for public transportation, the suggested changes by Caltrans on the Moss Beach thing for less parking rather than more parking in the unit, because that will force people into public transportation that does not now exist, and so forth and so on. So I think these numbers are very informative as to being realistic. And I would point out that even if this was able to be confined to local low-income people, the people in the service jobs, essentially servants for our aristocratic population on the coast side, and so forth and so on. If you look at these figures and then find out how much money these people actually make, they're, 80% of the AMI, the median income, is way more. People making way more than these people are going to be qualified for some of these housing projects. And I think that needs to be brought into consideration. Everybody wants to, have a diverse and fair population, but the systems that we're plugged into are not necessarily that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Any other public comment? All right, I will close public comment, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, the minutes for July 11th. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Carries 7-0, thank you.
Wait, no, Chris,
I'm sorry.
Whenever I'm not at a meeting.
I'm sorry, no,
I'll
I
abstain.
completely missed that, I miscounted you. So 6-0-1. One abstaining. Thank you, Secretary, for catching that. Now we are on to the regular agenda, observance of the August 18th opening of the new library, and I will turn that over to Claire.
I've been working with the city of Half Moon Bay on what we both planned to do to commemorate the opening of the library, which is on the 18th, next Saturday. This is not this coming one, but the one after. And what we have tentatively agreed to, pending the agreement of the council, is that there will be a joint written commendation for Annie O'Malley, who's the head librarian, based on the efforts that she's put into planning for the new library and for developing a number of really outstanding programs at the library, notably in technology, citizenship, literacy, and community development. So there's a desire to make a special recognition of her, which would be a written commendation to be presented at the next Half Moon Bay City Council meeting, which would be from both Half Moon Bay and from the Midcoast Community Council. We're also proposing a plaque to be installed permanently in the staff room of the new library, which would recognize the staff and would include both Half Moon Bay and the Midcoast Community Council on the plaque. I think this is important because we all are proud of the library and the fact that it's going to exist. And it's one actual formal opportunity for us to collaborate with something as equals with Half Moon Bay. So I'm excited about that part. We do not have the actual wording of what's going to be on this commendation yet. So I would be asking that the council agree in principle and I guess basically allow us to join in with what actually gets drawn up.
Okay, Any clarifying questions from the council?
Claire, so how was it determined that Miss O'Malley, is that the last name?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, nothing against her. I mean, I'm just asking because I could think of 2 or 3 other people who were instrumental, like how, in addition to her being the head librarian and developing some programs, just thinking of the other people, why aren't we putting, a couple other people's name on the commendation as well? How did it come to be
It's
just this
possible,
person?
possibly that might be able to be changed. This was what was brought up at a meeting of the Half Moon Bay people, and when they brought it up, I said maybe we could join in with this. So I'm not sure exactly what process they eliminated people. It's possible that somebody could be added to it.
Yeah, let me just ask a follow-up. So do you see any potential for hurt
Backlash.
feelings or some backlash, or again, like without knowing the decision-making process of how this person was selected, other than her being the head librarian, are we not knowing everything here? Like,
It's- It's totally possible.
I don't mean to, I'm not trying to like rain on the parade here. I know it sounds like it. I'm just thinking it out of like, I know that there was a lot of people on the Midcoast who grumbled about $12 million of county money, and it's in the city of Half Moon Bay. Would they have given a dime if it was up here? And now somehow people in Half Moon Bay have decided on this person's gonna get recognition for it. I'm just trying to, like, without having a personal stake in that, and nothing against this person, and I'm fine, I feel like I'm fine with it, but I just feel like in the interest of Mid-Coasters, how did we just decide on this one person and not others, and who decided that, and what was the decision-making process?
I hear what you're saying, and you may very well be right. I think what I was looking at mostly was making the library not be just a Half Moon Bay thing, but a total
Yes.
coastside
Yeah.
thing. And I was looking at it from that aspect.
Sure.
And I'm gonna guess, given the current city council and city manager, that they have definitely considered that. It may be to Annie as a representative of the staff, I don't know. But I'm gonna hold off on a little bit on that, because I want to do just clarifying questions, see if anybody in the audience has a comment. Yeah.
All right, so besides the name of the staff, will the name of the members of both councils be on the plaque?
I wouldn't anticipate that.
Got it. Not even the mayor of Afton Bay?
I don't know about that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Would
Well,
you-
12 names would be a lot. It's a good clarifying question, I don't know. Anybody else have a clarifying question, and then we'll go to the audience, then we'll come back? Okay, anybody in the audience want to comment on this? All right, seeing none, we'll go for discussion. Anybody want to just bring up anything for discussion to answer Chris's point or Brandon's point?
How much is the plaque total?
Once again, I do not have hard numbers. This is not a high priority item of the city of
Got it.
Half Moon Bay. But they basically said we didn't have to contribute anything. I thought that we should, if our name's gonna be on it. So I'm asking for a maximum of $50.
Got it.
Chris?
Well, Claire, I think it's a great idea for the MCC to be a co-partner in this. Because again, like I was just thinking about this when I saw the agenda item of, it's a lot of money that the county put in, and again, like if the tables were turned and the county said, we're gonna build the new library in Moss Beach, Half Moon Bay, pony up, this is gonna be your library too, would we have had that level of cooperation? So the county did a lot for this, and I'm glad that the MCC, because Mid-Coasters are gonna use this library, it's for everybody, not just City of Half Moon Bay. So I'm glad to see that the Mid-Coast will have some presence on this plaque and this letter of commendation. So I definitely support that. However, I am concerned that that there's gonna be some grumbling and backlash from people of where's the county's, recognition in this? And so I just, again, like, I don't mean to be sour on this. I'm fully supportive of the MCC signing on to this. However, is there somebody from county, I mean Supervisor Horsley, somebody that could represent the unincorporated county in this letter of commendation for this library? I mean, without our District 3 supervisors' efforts, would they have had enough money? They didn't have enough money, there was problems with the money. County came up with $12 million. That's a really important reason why this thing is happening. Should, as a question, not as a demand or even a statement, as a question, should somebody that represents county be on this as well?
I think that, my understanding is that Don will be presenting something at the opening, but that's not exactly what you're asking, is it?
Right. If we're writing a letter of recommendation, or not recommendation, commendation, excuse me, for somebody involved with this library, somebody chosen by City of Half Moon Bay City Council, should there be somebody presented or promoted that represents the county? You know, a co-equal partner in this project, should there be a county person on this letter of recommendation as well? What does the council think?
I will jump in.
What does the community think?
I will jump in as chair and say, the county's getting plenty of recognition. I see this as representing the Midcoast, and therefore having the county's name on it would sort of dilute representing the Midcoast. That's my opinion. Lisa, you had your hand.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think this is about, this plaque and this this commendation is about staff at the library. And it's, our joining in is about, because we use the library. The staff helps us. This is not about the money spent on construction of the library. This is about the staff, and I really appreciate you having this idea and bringing this forward. And if I could see where the motion wording is in here, I would make the motion now, but I can't quite tease it out of this. If you could give us your recommended motion, then I would say I so move.
Let's see if somebody else wants to make a comment, then we'll go on to that. I don't know. Brandon, Dan, you want to say anything? Barbara? No. Okay, fine. You want to suggest the wording on the motion?
I want to say something else, though,
Go ahead.
that perhaps as I continue to talk about the wording with the Half Moon Bay staff, that trying to word it somehow that it's not just about Annie O'Malley herself, but as part of the staff, making sure that everybody gets some kind of indirect mention. That might be something that we could try to do.
I mean, that would be great, Claire. Again, like, I have nothing against Annie O'Malley. It's not like she doesn't deserve the recognition. Like, why is she get? It's not about that. I just, I know a lot of people worked on it. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into it, and to identify one single person, I'm worried that people are somebody's going to feel left out. Somebody's going to feel not represented. But if the rest of the council feels good about it, I'm definitely ready to vote in approval of any motion on it right now.
So there's two parts of this. There's the letter of commendation, and then the plaque that's for staff. That's not calling out anybody in particular.
That's
right?
my understanding, yes.
Yeah, so that sounds good.
I don't have a copy of the agenda in front of me, so I don't know exactly how it was worded.
So should I read the desired outcome?
Yes, please.
MCC authorization, oh, maybe I haven't got it right. Maybe I didn't do this word for word, never mind. Dave, you do it.
She's got the wording now.
Okay. So the motion would be that the Midcoast Community Council will authorize issuing with the City of Half Moon Bay a joint written commendation of library staff, including Chief Librarian Annie O'Malley, and installing a plaque in the staff room jointly recognizing the staff and volunteers of the library.
I'll second
I
that.
so move.
And a contribution of $50 towards the plaque.
Okay.
We do need that.
Are those two separate, or are those?
No, it's
all
one motion.
Okay. And the MCC will authorize the expenditure of up to $50 to contribute toward the plaque.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
All right. Any further discussion?
Well, can we, is it possible, like, if the plaque just costs more, we could authorize up to $100 or something, authorize more money later?
Up to Claire, it's her motion.
I
would be
think
happy
50
with
is
it.
adequate, but if we needed to, we could.
They said they didn't need any.
Yeah, I thought that this was generous.
It's a token.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's basically saying we're in.
Got it.
Yeah.
You compare our $3,000 a year budget to the Half Moon Bay city budget. 50's good.
Which is what they did when they said we didn't need to pay anything.
All right, we have a motion and a second. No more discussion. All in favor? Carries 7-0. Thank you for putting this up there.
Good item, Claire.
All right, on to council activity. Does anybody have anything they want to report? Brandon?
Well, I have an exciting announcement. There's a new restaurant called Impression. It replaced Flavors by the Coast, which replaced Crab Landing. And it's a French restaurant, and I think it's the only French restaurant on the coast. So, I mean, I would absolutely support it. I mean, since it's the only French restaurant on the coast. Vous pouvez soutenir un restaurant français. Il est nécessaire manger en l'impression. So please go to that restaurant. It's probably going to be very tasty. I'm certainly going to go to it. It's a new restaurant, and when I do find a time, when I'm not working, I'll definitely head there.
Steve, are you gonna put subtitles in? So I can go back and see what Brandon said.
Pretty good accent, as far as I can tell. Anybody else have anything to report? Yes, go for it.
I went to the Beach House Homeowners Association meeting on July 18th, and we discussed the trees out in front. There's about 20 trees that they are contemplating either removing or cutting way, way back. The estimate to take one tree out is about $1,600 as opposed to 1 year ago, $800. So that is gonna really take a big hit on the reserve that the homeowners have. So they are talking about just cutting them back until we can build up some more cash. They brought to our attention out on the strand in front between the trail and the beach, that there's a Monterey pine that was planted there by apparently a owner, one of the little Christmas trees, and it's now about 10 feet tall, and it's growing children all along the strand.
Children.
So I went to Lisa about it, and we think that that's going to be that they're going to remove those trees, though.
Great.
So,
Thank you for being part of that.
Barbara, did they explain why in 1 year it doubled in price? Have the trees gotten that much bigger, or?
No,
what
they
happened
just,
there?
Davy Tree Trimming is who they're going to go with, and that's their new cost. And the beach house is going to be closed for one Sunday because they have some major repairs that need to be done. So they're trying to coordinate that in October to have that done at the same time. But just the price has gone up.
There's no inflation.
Just a clarification on how these Monterey pines pop up. They're planted by God, and they reproduce in the same fashion. I don't think you need to blame it on any person.
Yeah.
Well, they admitted it.
So the person,
the initial
they
one.
planted it out there? Because there were some pines there in the RV park too, so there's reproductive material available for these sprouts to come up.
Well, there's pictures of almost every year from 2003, I think, to now, and they're just, it's crazy, they're just going.
Well,
So
I'm
hopefully
glad
they'll
they're
remove
getting
those.
too. All right, anybody else have anything they want to report on? Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Let me go last.
Okay,
Okay.
first.
So I got a reply from Caltrans about our Adopt a Highway Permit application, and that is that they typed it up in blue ink and sent the exact form back to me for Barbara and I to look at to confirm that these are the things we put in the original form, and yes, they are. So we're gonna go ahead and submit this back, and as far as I understand the process, I believe that we have been at least informally approved, and that's why they sent this back to us for final confirmation. When we send it back to them, we're in, and then Barbara and I will begin, we'll have, I think it's 6 weeks to get our training done and get out there for the first time. I believe that was one of the stipulations. I have to go back and check my notes, but I believe within 6 weeks of being formally in, then you have to have done your first trash pickup. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Barbara is too. We'll do our training, and then we will report back to the council on when we will have our first scheduled trash pickup.
Great.
Did they give any detail on the landscaping aspect, or is this just gonna be trash?
No, in fact, I'm gonna have to compare it with my original form, because I said this was the exact same one. But I noticed in adoption type, there's no roadside vegetation. There's wildflower planting and vegetation control, but it seemed like there was another selection that we did mark in that one, and it's not in this form. So I will double check on that. When I saw that and I saw that it wasn't on there, I guess that's something that we can't have a discussion because it's not an agenda item, or are we following up? Because I would ask the council,
Well,
or I would propose, yeah.
just, may I think I pushed for that in
Yes.
there, and I'm just saying that, fine, just leave it blank.
Well, what I was
We can
gonna,
always add it later.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
take it one thing at a time.
If it's
here.
easy for them to send you a corrected one, I would request it, and if they make a big deal of it, just go with what you got.
I will email our contact, Jim Kennard, and I will ask him about that. But I was feeling that going forward, like, let's get in on this, get that relationship going, and then we could upgrade to the roadside. But I will send Jim an email asking him about the roadside maintenance.
Does that
Because
need
they're-
any signatures on it, by the way?
Does
Now
it
that
need
it's
any
printed?
signatures? I will have to ask that. He said just make sure all the information is correct and then
Okay.
mail it back
Sounds
to
like the
him.
answer's been-
I will follow up on him on that.
So I don't remember where I found it, but there was something, would describe as vegetation stuff, and did sound like something you'd have the yard crew do.
Yeah.
And plus, I don't wanna get into it now, but I'm fine with just sort of leave it at that. If, we'll do the trash pickup, and if we wanna expand this, then later, yeah.
Okay, will do. I will report back on that when I hear back from James, or Jim
Great.
Kennard.
Good to see something like that moving forward.
Yeah.
And,
Clarifying question on moving forward with this,
yeah,
and that is, since you announced that you're not gonna be running,
Yep.
just if you could refresh in my memory what was said at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, the requirement of MCC members to be trained. I guess what I'm leading towards, if you're off the council, can you still be one of the trained persons acting?
Yes,
Or
I
will
could
someone
not.
else need to fill in for your?
Right, so I'll still be on the council to December, and that will be at least 2 or 3, we have to do 2 or 3 trash pickups before then, so I'll go through the training with Barbara. Barbara is listed as the alternate contact, and again, my feeling is, once we get formally in this program, and we're on there, and we're on the sign, and we picked up trash at least once, then we can talk about like, well, let's update our file and have another agenda item, and have maybe Barbara wants to be the primary contact, and we could nominate a secondary contact. I will check with Jim again to see if a private citizen can be the secondary contact. I believe so. I believe just a single applicant from the body needs to apply, so that if we change and had Barbara become the primary, we would still be in compliance with their requirements. And I could still be part of it as any citizen could that wants to be part of this through the MCC's governing of it.
Yeah, just moving forward, I think we really need to reach out and have community members.
absolutely. The
help
whole,
with
the
this.
whole plan was to have community members.
Because, I don't think that, just the council will be able to.
Right, and the county council's office has cleared us on that.
I agree.
So there will be no problem reaching out to volunteers and having
They-
a committee maybe?
They will have to have some secondary training. Barbara and I have to go to Caltrans and have like the specific, primary contact safety person training. And then I believe that my understanding is that then we are authorized to kind of give a secondary training where we are the trainers to whoever we want to do. And that has to be before we actually go out on the highway. So we can't be like, everybody join us on the highway on Saturday. We'll give you the 10-minute safety spiel and then we'll be out there. We have to do that at a time.
Okay, so that was all in the video of the meeting where we approved it, if you want to go back and refresh that in your memory. Lisa, what did you want to report on?
I have another one before you go, since you want to be last.
Well, no, well, do you really want to be last, or do you just want to wait till after first?
I don't care.
Doesn't matter to me, because I've got something to report too. Okay, go ahead, Claire.
I was just going to remind people that the bike and pedestrian count is coming up in September, and you'll no doubt see items on this on Nextdoor and other places. I would encourage people who might be interested in spending 2 hours on a sunny day counting how many people are riding and walking on the trails. It's kind of a fun thing to do, so keep it in mind.
I did it last year.
If I may just add to that, for the multimodal parallel trail grant application, one of the requirements of the application was to include count information of the bicycle and pedestrian action there today. So the more people we can get out there, the better, and we never know what potential projects, or if there are specific areas where you would like to see improvements. I highly encourage you to get out there and help to document what the current use is to help us justify the need for future improvements.
Although I will,
It sounds like this is a call for people to go hiking that day and get counted.
Yeah.
That too.
although I did point out to the count, because I did it last year and it was right where the barn is. I think that's Medio and Highway 1 there. But I was there for 4 hours and there was like 2 cyclists, and I made a note to county that this is not, that particular area is not somewhere where anybody is going to commute, because there is a trail like about 300 yards behind me. That's where everybody's commuting. So to be monitoring how many people are commuting as some kind of basis for what should be done there is kind of backwards, because nobody's using it. So how will we have numbers to justify its use?
I mean, that was kind of a challenge with the parallel trail also, and then with the grant application, we're required to provide an estimate of the increase in the number of people who will be walking and biking to school, to El Granada Elementary School, and et cetera. So it's helpful to have numbers of at least what the current activity is in that area, and then even in other areas in the immediate kind of surrounding area, to help paint the picture that there is active bicycle and pedestrian activity and in that general area. And anyway.
Chris and I both spent time on Highway 1 last year, and very boring. But if you have any input at all to get people to count on the trails, I think it would make a big difference. And I know they set up these stations where you're supposed to count in advance. So if you have any input on that, Ellie, if you could ask them to do it in a place where they're going to count people.
Okay. Anything else? Lisa?
Okay, so on July 15th, I attended the Let's Talk About Housing meeting in Half Moon Bay, and I think Barbara was there. Dave, Claire, were you there?
No.
Okay, and it was like 100 people there?
Mm-hmm.
And I found it very interesting. A number of the tables were bilingual, so we have discussions at these separate tables, and we heard comments that that we're not seeing on Nextdoor, or the more aggressive conversations on the issue of affordable housing, and of people who are struggling to stay in their housing. At my table, there was a young man who's staying in a home in Montera, and he said, he couldn't even be here on the coast, except for this woman who's renting out the room. And another man said that his children were in Spanish immersion in Half Moon Bay, and he liked the multicultural community, and yet the Mexicans are having to move away. And I spoke about my experience living at Pillar Ridge, where there's no income requirement there, and so in this housing market, basically the people who live there own their own homes. They rent the land under the homes, which is rent controlled. But in this housing environment, when the people move, the price of the homes is skyrocketing. And the person across the street from me who bought his house for like $28,000 many years ago just sold it for $145,000. This is not land we're talking about. This is an old single wide, 100, and it was bid up. So, and then a new one that came in at Pillar Ridge just sold for $259,000. Just the home, not the land. That's for the privilege of paying $1,070 a month just for the rent and all the utilities. Anyway, so just saying, already that gets so it's not affordable. Anyway, it was a very interesting meeting, and I think they're going to have another one in September. And I also attended July 18 Coastside Design Review Study Session. I've told you before, they're revising the Midcoast. They're intending to revise the Midcoast Design Standards, and their next study session is in September. It looks like I'll be going to all of these. They said they appointed me the MCC advisor, because we're trying to help them with LCP and that kind of stuff. And also, on Connect the Coast side, I have an update. I asked the planner, Rob Bartoli of Connect the Coast side, to give us an update specifically on Moss Beach. Apparently there's an administrative draft of the final plan, but it's still being bounced back and forth between county staff and the consultant, and so we won't see that before we need to comment on the Mid-Penn project, and I thought it'd be useful to have some information on what's coming in Connect the Coast side for Moss Beach. And he said, first of all, the updated timeline, the TAC meeting is expected in September, and then the public rollout on Connect the Coast side would be like in March. They'll come to the MCC and Half Moon Bay. So as far as Moss Beach goes, Rob confirmed that the signal warrant is met at California as well as Cypress, and while that provides justification for intersection control improvements, timing for implementation of those improvements usually coincides with a project, such as Big Wave or Mid-Penn housing. In the case of Frenchman's Creek, I believe the motivation was a fatality for that signal. He said the draft plan leans toward a signal at California rather than a roundabout. He said due to Winky Way and site distance issues, of course we know that Caltrans would still require a full feasibility analysis for a roundabout, but that was not too encouraging to hear. And then he said the plan for the north end of Carlos Street is to make the exit onto the highway right turn only, which is, by the way, the same concept that was in the 2012 safety and mobility study. He said Caltrans had no objection to that in their written comments on the draft plan for Connect the Coast side. And one more update is on Big Wave project. They are expected to be on the Board of Supervisors September 4 agenda, unless it gets postponed. And for the purpose of amending the development agreement again regarding timing of trail construction on Airport Street and payment for cost equivalent of a signal at Cypress. The county now wants the trail on the east side of Airport Street and needs additional time to pursue this. I clarified that. I said, that wasn't a typo? Yes, because throughout Plan Princeton and all that, we asked for that trail to be on the east side, and they said, no, it has to be on the west side. So now the county wants to put it on the east side. So I was very pleased to hear that. And what else? Also, the county also needs more time to pursue the roundabout design. So Big Wave has submitted a building permit application for the site preparation for the wellness center, grading and gravel pad only. They've only submitted the application, they haven't got the building permit. They're also working with county council. Big Wave is working with county council about outstanding fee payment alternatives. They owe about $250,000 in back fees, and so they're working something out. But we won't really know anything until we see the staff report. Apparently the CDP amendment portion of this will be done by the planning director. And so there's that. I'm done, thanks.
Okay. I also, as Lisa mentioned, was at the housing meeting. I was at Ellie's table, and Ellie did a great job of simultaneous translation. Thank you for doing that. Yes, it was very interesting hearing the varying opinions of everybody at that meeting. It's very useful, and if you have a chance to go to the next one, I highly recommend it. Also, there was another meeting of the Ohlone Portola Heritage Trail Core and Interpretive meeting 2 weeks ago now, I think. And the recreational trail layout is pretty well finalized, not approved by any means, but preferred route that we're going to recommend to the larger group. The interpretive signs are moving ahead, logos are moving ahead, planning for the events at the 250th anniversary are moving ahead, and there's a meeting of all the representatives next Monday, I believe. And that's GGNRA, state parks, archaeologists, county parks, everybody you can imagine, history associations. So that's moving ahead, and looks like we might really have a trail in places and ready for the opening for the 250th anniversary.
Which is what?
November 4th
Of this year?
of 2019.
Oh, wait, I also have another announcement.
Okay, so, hold on. If any of you have concerns about that, a lot of the maps aren't public yet, but, or if you have suggestions, please let me know. And one other minor issue or minor progress report is there's been some concerns about Fitzgerald overnight parking and other problems. County Parks has put up no parking signs in various places. They've clarified some of their other signs in the last few weeks, and they are working on foreign language brochures so that visitors who do not speak English will know the rules. And that was all from Nicholas Calderon. So he is back from vacation and jumping into the job. Go ahead, Brandon.
All right, so there's also, this November, we're going to have a ballot measure regarding half-cent sales tax for the San Mateo County Transit District. I believe that based on what the news said, I think the funds goes on to transportation studies and then possible a limited amount of infrastructure. So I'm not sure how much money the measure will raise, but it will be a limited amount.
Many hundreds of millions. I'm the MCC representative to one of the committees on that. But yes, all of that is public and it's out there. You can find all the information on the Samtrans site. All right, anything else? Okay. All of our agenda items are running longer than I expected tonight. Future agendas, the only thing we currently have planned is our next meeting on August 22nd will be our comments on the Cypress Point project submittals. We will not be discussing the project as a project, just our comments on what they have submitted. I'm sure we'll hear parts about the project along the way, but the focus is our comments on the project. Does anybody else have any other agenda items for the 22nd? Okay, well, we'll see what happens as we get closer to it. That one will be a pretty meaty long item, so if it's the only item, I think we'll all be happy. And barring anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So,